the obstacles you faced. Like, there was no Twitter, there was no social network, there was none of that aids us today to, you know, to get things to spread. So, like, how did you convince a Frankie Crocker or a Don Cornelius or a Jack the Rapper or even Walter Yunzikoff to get the CBS deal? Like, what obstacles did you face during that first crucial year? And my second question was, how hard was it to step away from your baby, you know, to step away from Def Jam? And, like, what do you think about the kind of state that it's in today? And
those are two questions. The first one is, you know, we were just kids, and my first record was 5 years before the launch of Def Jam, and we had a record, Christmas Rapping, Curtis Blow, 1979, and we pressed up vinyl. There were no rap records. There was not a Sugar Hill record or nothing. And we had this record, and that record might have been made, I don't know, but it came out a little later. And it was on the shelf, and we started to work the street. And it got a buzz on the DJs, like in the hot DJs, mostly in the downtown clubs and in the South Bronx or Harlem, but not in Midtown, but in building something. And we put a fake order number on it. And so Polygram said, "What is this record?" And the British guy came in and bought it. Because, you know, the rap was already, you know, not like black record executives didn't know what rap was. It's like we were not allowed in their clubs. They wouldn't fuck with us. They would allow, you know, so the British guy found out about it and bought Christmas Rapping. Secondly, there was a buzz. We had Run DMC and everything before there was Def Jam. So I met Rick, and there were all the records on the radio at that moment. But at that moment, Sugar Hill was kind of cold. Were our records, like if we managed Jimmy Spicer or Fearless 4 or whoever it was, Houdini. And then I heard this record is yours. And I met Rick Rubin through Jazzy J. And Jazzy J took me to Rick, and he had all these beats on his drum machine. And he was a DJ for the Beastie Boys. And we all know how brilliant he is today, but he DJ for the Beastie Boys. There was a tape sent to us, and it was the LL Cool J record. And that record, he remixed it. And instead of me making a record deal, because I was almost on the verge of making a Rush record deal, he had the Def Jam logo on that Tila Rock record. And he said, "Well, I put some money in Def Jam records." And we put in $2,500 a piece, and we put out the record. And the record was "I Need a Beat" by LL Cool J. This is what we know about records. And you know this, if you throw a record out the window, it's going to be everywhere within like a week. A great record. Good record, you know, it's struggling. A great record is instant. Then, without social media, without anything, no matter what, I've heard records that were on tape, cassette, that I don't know how they got to Philadelphia because it took time to drive, we couldn't email them. And they were on the radio in Philadelphia. Like, how the fuck, we just mixed this, you know, it happens. So great records travel. And I Need a Beat. Rick Rubin and I went to a record store that sold the hip-hop records. And we had the Def Jam logo. It was the second Def Jam logo, although we made it bigger and made it a 12-inch thing. And people were buying the record. He had sold 2 boxes, and Bobby didn't know what was in the box. He sold 2 boxes that were in shrink wrap. And we didn't know how anybody knew. But I Need a Beat had sold 2 boxes out of that store within 2 days, and it was amazing. And we took it out and played it for the owner of the store. He didn't know what it was. But that's what happens with good records. So it wasn't really an obstacle. And then especially the records Rick made, the first early Def Jam records, they were so good. You know, they stood up on their own, they were unique. And people were thirsting for hip-hop and for records that really spoke in the way that we saw hip-hop, which was kind of, I hated R&B. Like, I didn't want to hear bass line. I didn't want to hear a guitar that sounded like, I didn't want to hear nothing that sounded like it was R&B. And so we made alternative records. I did before I met Rick, and then Rick did with me. And so we produced records that people were thirsting for. So it wasn't hard. You know, and the numbers made them like us, eventually.
And the second part of the question?
Oh, Def Jam today. We were doing a 25-year anniversary record. I mean, not a record book. There's a book.
Right.
And I haven't been that involved in it. And they would talk about who they're involved in it. And we were talking to Kevin and Leor and people around us, because the people around us had bigger they didn't want to include a lot of people. They said the last artists that were really big and where'd they come from? Those guys really did, and I was out of the picture. I mean, I would come in as a chairman, I, did other shit, and I would meet with the artists and mentor some, but not the day-to-day. They built a company that, the last thing I did it was seriously my project, Nutty Professor soundtrack. And Jay-Z was on that soundtrack. The record Ain't No Nigga was on that soundtrack. And then Damon was running around a little bit later with Kanye and just about everything that Def Jam was. Rick Leon and Kevin Lyles, Julie Greenwald and Mike, they were involved. But almost every hip-hop thing that Def Jam has even today, which, and there's a lot of hit records and special stuff that was added, layered on top of that, and it's fantastic. But the Def Jam that we built is not, with the exception of Rick Ross, it hasn't really changed in terms of the artists, the kinds of artists and the artists. So there's a Justin Bieber, but it's not the Def Jam we built. So it's, and our legacy, whatever that is done. And I think they have a great company. It's still a.
So you just see it as a logo, and
it was a logo, and even when they merged it, I kind of, I didn't say it broke my heart. It just made me feel like,
okay.
Def Jam was the only logo at the time that really spoke hip hop.
Right.
We didn't do nothing but hip hop. We believed in it, so it was a unique phenomenon, and they tried to stay that way. They tried to keep some, so it was kind of old after that.
Side question: why did